Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Winter is Coming Live, the official Game of Thrones after show of winteriscoming.net, brought to you by Entertainment Weekly. My name is Adam Rady, and once again, we are here at the Stream.tv talking Game of Thrones, this time Season 5, Episode 4, Sons of the Harpy. To my left sits Alison Haislip. And of course, as always, to my right sits Xavier Brinkman.
Yo.
Maybe one day we'll switch it off and really throw you off.
You guys will absolutely throw me off. I will not be prepared for that. Now, as always, get your questions in with the hashtag WIC. Use the hashtag WIC or we can't find your questions. They will be lost to the internet and we'll never know what to do. So please use the hashtag WIC and we will address them throughout the episode, probably at the end though. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Let's get into it.
All right, getting into it.
Move it along, Rady.
All right, here we go.
Time for the formalities,
Even the most dangerous men can be outmaneuvered.
Ooh.
That was a really, really cool line to me. Littlefinger. Last week, you guys were like, I think, we all were like, is Sansa screwed?
Right.
Does Littlefinger realize how much danger he's putting her into? And now he's like, hey, Stannis is gonna come, and he's gonna save you. You're gonna be Warden-S. He's got this whole plan.
It's always so interesting how good Littlefinger is at revealing bits of his plan at the right time.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it would have been a different story had he told Sansa, hey, yes, we're going to marry you to the Bolton bastard, but really I kind of know that Stannis is coming. There's a really damn good chance that he's going to save Winterfell and rescue you.
And you're going to be ahead.
Yeah. You're going to be the Warden-S of the North. By the way, I loved that word, Warden-S. I was like, ooh, that's a new one. Don't think we heard that one yet.
Did anyone, when she was alone in the cave underneath, did anyone else think it was Ramsay's mistress that was going to? I thought Sansa was already in trouble. Like the mistress was creeping up, and then there was going to be a showdown. But it wasn't. It was just good old Littlefinger.
Now, see, I didn't think it was the mistress yet. I mean, I thought she was in trouble, but I was like, is Ramsay already? I was like, she's gonna there's gonna be down in the
Think about how many people it could have been though.
The great number. But what's interesting, of course, was that she was at her aunt Lyanna's.
Yes.
Grave. I guess it's a grave. What would you call that? Grave?
Tomb.
Tomb.
Yes, tomb.
Thank you. Tomb. And Littlefinger reveals, I think, the full story. We've kind of heard it in bits and pieces before about the tourney that happened where Rhaegar decided after he won, he defeated Barristan Selmy in the tourney, and he took the roses, the winter roses.
Yes, the
blue
as frost.
Yes, blue as frost.
Yes.
And instead of giving them to his wife, Elia Martell, of course, Dorne, Oberyn's sister. Yes. He rode past and gave it to Ned Stark's sister. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, this started Robert's Rebellion, and we all know what happens from there. But I just thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, that was a great history lesson to get at that part.
Absolutely.
But it was really also very interesting how Sansa finished the story for him. How she was like, yes, he chose her, but then he kidnapped her and raped her.
Yeah.
And you could tell Littlefinger's like, well, that wasn't the story I was telling. What was the story he was telling?
Well, what he said was how many thousands had to die because Rhaegar chose Lyanna, or chose your aunt.
Sure.
I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, Xavier, this is not the only story about Rhaegar that we hear in this episode. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think we kind of hear two different stories about a Rhaegar.
Who Rhaegar is.
Yeah, who Rhaegar was. So what did you think about this?
Well, are we segueing to Khaleesi's situation?
Well, no, we're not segueing yet. I'm just curious to know what you specifically thought about that story, because we've kind of heard Alison's thoughts, and I want to know what you thought of that story.
I mean, interesting. I haven't read the books, and it's like, it's all coming out. I love hearing these pieces of the puzzle that make things just make a lot more sense. I guess it's good, and I love hearing. Littlefinger's, plan, really, of how it's all coming out,
You know what I thought was the greatest thing about this scene, at the very end of the scene, where Littlefinger's telling Sansa, like, by the way, there's this whole other plan, you're gonna be good, and then they have the creepy kiss.
That kiss, though.
Oh, the creepy kiss. But it was sort of a moment where I went, ooh, it's almost like Sansa is becoming Littlefinger's protege.
Well, he says you've learned from the best.
Yes. She's becoming just as manipulative. She's learning so much from him. And I really feel like there could be a point down the line where we see the apprentice overtake the master.
Of course. Heck
Right?
yeah, a little Darth Sansa instead of Dark
Especially
Sansa.
at the end of this scene when she is like, I suspect I will be married by the time you return.
And how creepy was that? Xavier, now I'm turning to you real fast. How creepy was that? Because she says it in a way where she's like, yeah, I expect by the time I return, I'll be a married
As
woman.
in, like, so you probably can't do that again. Like,
Yeah,
moving forward.
was it-
And it's
Right.
also, it seems so, like, she just took it, and it seems so natural. I mean, like, it didn't seem out of the blue at all for him just to lean in and for a kiss, right?
Right.
And that's alarming, kinda.
It is alarming. Now, we know that Stannis is coming down to Winterfell, and in fact, Littlefinger knows, so he's betting on Stannis. And then he even says, of course, if he doesn't show up, I'm sure you'll be able to handle things because you'll take this Ramsay boy as your own. I was
Yes.
like, I don't know if she's going to pull that one
And
off.
yet, well, and he even said that, or he said that, and then Sansa's like, I don't know how to do this, and he's like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
There's so much reading. So help me here. There's so much reading in between the lines here. Like when they were on the hill and he was giving Sansa the pep talk of, this is what's going to happen. You're going to marry him, avenge your family, and then end scene. But what does that actually mean? So, like, we brought it up last week, and I'm still confused about it. Like, there's no, we don't see any dialogue of any specifics with anything with these two. It's like...
It's very interesting because obviously they had to ride from the Eyrie all the way over to Winterfell, but we only got very brief glimpses of them because there is so much distance.
So it's like the week before, it was like I was under the impression that Sansa it was her mission to like kill Ramsay and Roose Bolton. That was how she was going to avenge him. Now we know that Stannis, he's a betting man, and we find out that Stannis is going to be on his way. Is that, is he relying on Stannis to take care of?
I think Alison brought up a great point about a little bit coming out at a time in his plan, and I think we're seeing it, and I think this has been his plan, but I think Littlefinger reveals those little bits, as Alison mentioned, when he's sure that he can mention them.
Yes, I think if Littlefinger had told Sansa this plan from the get-go on that hillside, being like, hey, I'm going to marry you to Roose Bolton, but don't worry, because Stannis is going to come in and save you, Sansa would have reacted completely differently when she arrived there. So he's just really good at reading Sansa and knowing what information she can have. And so he then reveals this information about Stannis to her as he's leaving, so she doesn't freak out.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very interesting. Of course,
is.
we're gonna start to go to a different direction, and that direction, of course, is Stannis and Jon and Melisandre and all those things. And I kind of wanted to say really fast that if the war is life against death, and that means you get to grab boobs, then I'm all for that war. I'm absolutely for that war.
I wasn't aware that to feel someone's heartbeat, you had to grow to their breasts. Because I must have missed the memo on that.
Specifically her left breast.
Yeah,
so it
she's
was.
like-
Yeah,
it was
it
the
was
anatomy.
anatomically-
My heartbeat.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Cool.
I mean, but this is why
I feel
we
the
love,
metaphor of life in this tip. Yes.
But this is why we love Jon, right? Like he shows he's human, but then he still sticks to his principles. He's still a good guy. He's like, nope, I still love that woman, even though she's dead. So get away from me. I will not make smoke babies with you.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, no, all I really wanted to bring up was when you guys saw Melisandre come into the room, what was going on in your head, and you were thinking, oh, this is now Jon and Melisandre alone.
That was exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I was like,
this
she's
dude-
going to seduce
This
him.
dude's in trouble. But for one, so Jon still is in love with Grit, but he also swore an oath, not to even
Have women at
To
all.
be
Yeah,
with
but
women
what
at
was
all.
interesting about that was he's like, I swore an oath, and she like looked at him like, really? That's what's stopping you?
Yeah, it was funny. Like I don't know what his I don't know how that one worked out. I mean, it started off as though he wasn't because of the Night's Watch oath, but then he was just like, nah, I just love someone else.
It's really but either way, it's an oath.
So he gave
to
him
himself.
He gave her two reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was that great line where he was like, I loved another. And she's like, it doesn't matter, she's dead.
Yeah.
Or she
the
says
dead
something about-
don't need to be loved. Or
Yeah,
something like
something
that.
much cooler than that. And then, of course,
Yeah.
he says, I still love her. And then she walks out and turns and delivers the line.
Oh my gosh! I screamed when she was like, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." I actually went, "Ah, no, you didn't." That was
I'm so confused. And if anyone else has any idea of what that's all about, fill me in.
because she's got these weird powers, so she obviously knew that was the thing that would get him.
Yeah.
Like she sensed that
I
somehow.
want to jump over here, though, to Xavier really fast. So, Xavier, you say that you're confused by what her powers are.
Yeah.
What do you, in your mind, what's your leading theory right now? I know you say you're confused, but do you think that she sees into the past through the flames? She sees it when it was happening. Did she know about this prior? Did she know about Jon Snow and how important he was, or did she just figure it out when she got there? Like what kind of
Yeah, I mean, oh, dude, far out. She's such an beautiful and interesting character.
Yes.
That I mean, geez, who knows if it's from? But even if she can see in the past, I mean, she's picked out a very staple line. I mean, it's almost one of the most famous lines from the whole of Game of Thrones, right?
Like Winter is Coming is the only thing that is more popular than
So I mean,
Jon Snow.
it's just. I mean, I guess it really shows some insight in that she does have magical powers or whatever it is, and it reinstates that she does have something going on that we don't know about. So
yeah, absolutely, very interesting. Continuing at Castle Black, of course, Stannis is still chilling there, and there was a brief scene where we kind of mentioned this, and a very very brief moment where Selyse is commenting about Jon Snow, but she also has some undertones about Shireen, their daughter, and Melisandre basically comes down and is like, doesn't matter what's on the skin, the Lord of Light doesn't care. But then what a beautiful scene between Stannis and Shireen.
I loved it. This is the first time that my heart has warmed towards Stannis. I've never thought Stannis was a bad guy, even though he kind of goes about things in much too of a strategic way. But this is the first time when you finally saw humanity in him and how much he actually loves his daughter.
It was a great scene. You could when she said, "Are you ashamed of me?" It was great acting. You could see that his face really dropped a second. He's like, "God, how do I explain this? How do I tell her that I would never be ashamed of her?" And I really enjoyed hearing the backstory on Grayscale and how that came about.
With the doll.
Right, and there's another history lesson in today's episode. Of course, Stannis talking about how maybe he puts the blame on himself for buying the doll. I mean, maybe that's why he's so hard in some ways. And what a beautiful line. I mean, I was almost moved where he was like, almost moved to tears when he was like, you are the Princess Shireen.
Yes.
And you are of the House Baratheon, and you are my daughter. And you do not belong with some bloody gray men.
And it was also funny that Melisandre came in and undermined the mother.
Yeah.
And even in that scene, she's like, yeah, but she has Stannis' blood in her, and that's enough, And the mum was, I mean, you saw that scene. I mean, Melisandre totally stood over her, and the mum just bailed. I mean, the mum's not a likable character at all.
Yeah, Selyse hasn't really brought any humanity to it, I guess. Humility. I don't know what the right word is there, but go ahead, Alison.
You believed, did Stannis buy the doll? Because I was under the impression that he was given the doll because he said something along the lines of, they saw my daughter as a way to get to me. So I was under the impression that someone actually gave him the doll.
It's a doll that had the house colors on it that no new father could resist.
Right, but I thought it was given to him purposely to give his daughter grayscale.
No, I'm gonna agree with Xavier here. I think the reading into it was because you would imagine, of course, that you would know that this lord had a daughter, and so the salesman would come. And I think the idea was that he was a gullible father to be like.
And you're saying did they intentionally give it to her?
No, that's what I'm saying. I believe that it was given to him, and he was like, "Of course, I'll take it. It has the house. I'm a new dad, and it has the house colors." I don't think he bought it.
Oh, but
I don't think it was his decision to buy it. I think it was his decision to accept it.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Which is different.
That's both to you guys.
Yeah.
Do you think that the person who either gave or sold the doll to Stannis for Shireen, do you think that doll was purposely?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think this was a way to purposely get to.
And that brings up why was someone from Dawn wanting to do that? Because he said it was a salesman from Dawn.
From Dawn, right?
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. But regardless, Stannis, of course, got the doll for her. He cured her, and he showed true emotion. And for me, I think that was a strong turning point. For me and Stannis.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't believe that Stannis is the guy who's going to rule at the end of this show, whenever this show ends. But I now have a bit more hope for him.
Yes.
I'll now be bummed when he goes. Let's put it that way.
Well, you know what?
By the way, I also said when, not that I actually know he's going to go, but I'm so convinced everyone in the show is going at some point.
You know what's funny is when you said it, I was just like, well, yeah, I mean, when he dies, because everybody's just going to die.
I just wanted to make sure people weren't like, spoiler alert, because I have no idea.
Yeah, well, that being said, of course, speaking of good parenting, Cersei.
Oh man.
What a wonderful parent she is.
You know what I
isn't she?
thought during this, all of Cersei's scenes, this episode? It's so amazing that they started this season with the flashback of Cersei when she was like 12, 14, however old she was. Because this season feels like the season of Cersei. This feels like it's more her story than anyone else's. These past 4 episodes, I mean, yes, we've seen so many other characters, but Cersei specifically, we've seen so much more, I feel like, and her storylines have been like all over the place. So I feel like that season 5 is the season of Cersei.
Sure.
Yes. So basically what she's done, because after last episode, we were kind of like, wow, Marjorie stepped up her game and Cersei just got knocked down a notch. But I believe it was you, Xavier, who mentioned you don't want to say those things to Cersei because she's gonna come back. You don't want to piss off Cersei.
Sure, I mean, it appeared that that Marjorie really took her down a notch, and it was great acting, from Lena Headey. But she actually looked hurt and shocked when she got called an alcoholic and all that sort of stuff. But I still feel like she's too vicious to go down that easily. And
Yes.
obviously what she's plotting now is...
And now her plot, we're starting to see some things turn with the Sparrows and the High Sparrow and the High Septon. So we're getting some kind of, I wouldn't say closure, but some sort of now coalescing of this storyline where she sort of is like, well, now I've got this new High Septon kind of in my pocket because I put him in power, and he wants to do good, and I can say the lies, and yeah, we need to get rid of the sinners and stuff. And by the way, I have the specific sinner that you should go after first once we reinstate the faith militant.
Right.
And now she basically has her own private army, and they go after Loras.
I found it very interesting because this High Sparrow guy feels very legitimate and genuine and just wanting to do good in a good way. And then all the guys he armed were like bloodthirsty.
Yeah,
they
I found that
went for it.
the High Sparrow was such a nice, such a nice and civil kind of character. It was weird that he would put the order for all of this. And
Yeah.
also, I have a question for you guys. When we were watching and Cersei said, and we do have a sinner amongst our midst who's protected by wealth. I mean, I said it to you when we were watching it. I was actually thinking that she was talking about herself.
I actually thought that too. I thought
It
she was
was
sort
a
of
little bit, yeah.
I thought she was having like a
moment.
moment of weakness and was like, and
Yeah.
was sort of wanting, like reaching out for help. But obviously, she meant Loras.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what I want to jump over really fast to what
Yeah.
you just mentioned was that these sort of like violent, hungry guys
Yeah.
working. Lancel all of a sudden has this 7-pointed star just
Oh.
not even
Just-
branded,
and
just cut,
Just
just
dead
Right.
eyes too.
Yeah.
I thought
Wow.
as gross as it was, I thought it was very cool how they just showed his
Yeah.
mouth, and that you obviously couldn't tell what it was, and it was just flashing back to that through all of those battles and neck slicing, as you put it. It was a cool effect, and
Yeah.
he is like a crazy bastard. Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's what's like how dead his eyes are, and all of those guys are is pretty scary, right?
So and the end result to this, of course, is Loras is arrested. Marjorie is pissed. This, of course, puts Tommen to say,
In a
well,
tough
I'll
position.
go get him out. Sure, because man, did Marjorie use that line? Do you have any affection for me at
Yeah.
all? I was like, oh,
Yeah.
My heart broke for Tom in this episode because this is the episode where it's so clear that both of these women who he loves in his life are playing him.
Yeah.
He's a pawn in both of their lives.
Yeah.
And he's such a genuine, like, nice guy.
Yeah, and you could really tell this episode. I think it was a great episode that really stripped away, who Tommen really was, and it showed how ill-equipped he is to be a king of the power that he really has, and
Right.
that when he turned to the Kingsguard was like, what do you mean you're gonna kill him?
Well, that's
And
the sad part is that he'd probably actually be a really great king.
Yeah,
He
he
just
probably
has
would.
all these other people manipulating him to not be.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to phrase this around this question. The season started with Cersei's flashback, and the flashback specifically said all of your children will wear crowns of gold and shrouds of gold. So the implication, of course, being that they're all going to die. Here's a great question that I want to, and it's great because I'm saying it, is of course, do you think that Cersei and Marjorie, but specifically this question then centers around Cersei, do you think that they will be the cause of his downfall, Cersei and Marjorie? Do you think Tommen's downfall and inevitable death will actually be at the bickering hands of Cersei versus Marjorie?
I would be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think we see Cersei getting she's using her own son as a pawn, which is really sad, and it would be her like
And it would
comeuppance,
and it would
for
be
her to be the cause of his own death.
It would be her comeuppance, and it would break her. I
Oh,
think.
yes.
If because she would
Yeah.
have to realize, but of course she'd put it on Marjorie.
Yeah.
But I think inside she'd know it was her fault too. What about
Right.
you, Xavier?
No, I agree. And I mean, did you see that moment between Tom and Marjorie when she comes out swinging and she's like, get my brother out, and this is your mother. She's manipulated the situation, and then Tom and turns to her and said, "Oh, aren't you guys getting along?"
Yeah.
And she's just like, "Oh, Jesus Christ."
She's like, oh yeah, I forgot you're like 11 or
know
whatever.
Yeah.
nothing,
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
Tom
She's like, all right,
Lannister.
God. Okay, let me take this back to basics here and just go back to first round manipulation.
So like you said, a lot of stuff going on with Cersei this season. It's sort of a Cersei season, as it were. In fact, all of these sort of points when we do these episodes, there's a lot of stuff under Cersei, a lot of stuff happening in King's Landing, and of course, always, again, use the hashtag WIC. We're going to try to get your guys' questions answered, your comments, your thoughts. You can do that throughout the week to any of our individual Twitter handles, or of course at WICNet or at EW, and use the hashtag WIC. But speaking of Cersei, I thought another interesting line, because I kind of use these to kind of get us into the right scenes here. And the line from Jaime, because we discover how he wants to die in the arms of the woman he loves.
Yeah. And Bruns is calling him out like
Yeah,
twice.
Bruns,
He's
full
like,
on.
oh, your niece? Hey, brother. And he's like, God damn it, man. And then he's like, in the hands of the woman that I love. And he's like, how does she feel about it? And he's like,
Yeah.
let's go and kill these guys. Put down your snake.
I'm gonna throw
Put
out,
down your snake.
I'm gonna throw out something pretty crazy.
Okay.
Earlier in that episode, there was a moment where they are sailing, and the first time that you see Jaime on the boat, he says, "What's that island?" And it's Tarth.
Yeah, Brienne.
And
The
he
island
has,
of sapphires.
The island of sapphires, and he has quite the smile on his face.
Yeah.
If you go back, a smirk, and there's some sort of, there's a look there. So I'm
You
curious.
think Brienne could be the woman he loves?
I'm just saying what was on his mind.
Yeah.
I
That's
feel
what
like a
I'm.
matchmaker.
That's what I'm throwing out there is who was on his
You
mind.
could tell
when
there
he
was
saying
there was
that.
an affection he was feeling, and
Absolutely.
obviously Brienne of Tarth would have to have been on his mind, right? I think that's a real. I meant to say that's a good pickup.
Yeah.
I felt the same thing. I was like, oh damn, what's going on there?
Yeah. Now, of course, the captain sells them out as Bronn expects to happen.
Right.
And,
And
Jaime.
gets a spear in the head for it.
Yes, and Jaime says, oh, yeah, I can take one if he's slow. And of course, Bronn's like, well, okay, I'll take three then.
Yeah.
And just a really cool fight.
Bronn's a legend.
Bronn's awesome.
But it was good. I only picked that up you're right. Like Bronn did predict that. He's like, yeah, well, he'll make any oath the captain will make every oath that he has to, and then he'll as soon as you leave, he'll turn his back on
Right.
you, and that's exactly what happens.
The
so.
coolest part, though, is absolutely when you think Jaime's about to lose, and he just sticks his gold hand up, and it's just like thunk,
The
like
hands.
right into it.
Yes, yes. And
It's
you
a
know,
new form of defense.
It's a new form of defense, and I think we were all in some way kind of waiting for Jaime to be like, dude, you have this big metal friggin' thing that you can just
clock
swing around.
someone in the
Yeah.
face with
Yeah,
it.
and I think Bronn almost kind of showed him that last season when they started sparring together, and Bronn just took his hand and hit him with it the one
Yes.
time. And it's like, dude, come on, how long did that take you? And then, of
Yeah.
course, Bronn says, we had a wonderful teacher.
Yeah.
So-
I love
Yeah,
Bronn.
Jamie's being a bit of a little bitch with his like, I can't row, I can't dig, I can't fight. Like he needs to man up and just accept it, his disability, and make the most of it.
All right, so the next question to ask here then, of course, is who's your favorite here? Is it Jaime and Bronn, or is it Podrick and Brienne?
Ooh. I gotta go Podrick and Brienne because they feel a bit more like Laurel and Hardy to me.
Yeah.
They're so different from each other, so I just feel like there's a much different dynamic.
Yeah.
But I love me some Bronn.
Yeah, I'm really digging this. I guess because Podrick and Brienne weren't even in this episode. But I really like the dynamic between these two guys. Bronn's such a legend, like to watch, and it's cool. Like I'm really interested to see where these two go and how they stay alive.
Yes, and of course, this then leads us to the fact that the Sand Snakes finally make their appearance. We've been hearing about the Sand Snakes sort of all year in sort of the rumor talk on winteriscoming.net, as well as many other places. And in fact, in the first episode, at least the first episode that we see Dorne and Doran, he mentioned, or Ilaria Sand mentions the Sand Snakes. Says, the Sand Snakes are with me. And of course, now we see the Sand Snakes, who are Oberyn's daughters,
Hardcore.
amongst many women, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I don't think surprises anyone.
And I have to say, like before you go on, when the mum asked if the third daughter was in, She could have simply said yes instead of going on a 5-minute monologue and then throwing a spear in someone's
But there would be no
face.
drama in that then.
I mean, a simple, yeah. I mean,
think of her dad
would have worked,
is.
right?
Her dad was the biggest showman out there. That's why he died. He couldn't just kill the guy. He had to give a whole speech. So,
Yeah.
of course, she got his tongue.
All right.
I have to mention, by the way, first off, another history lesson that we hear about Oberyn
Yes.
talking about, or Oberyn talking about Oberyn. But I have to give a lot of props to Oberyn, the actress who plays Oberyn, and I'm sorry her name is escaping me right now, of course. But her ability, in fact, during her sort of walk over to her spear, was so reminiscent of Oberyn's walk. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. But there was like this swagger, and I was just like, yeah, of course you're Oberyn's daughter.
Oh,
like,
that's great.
Absolutely.
I didn't catch that. That's such a good point.
So the question was spears versus tears, and it looks like they are going to go choose to try to now beat Jaime and Bronn to Myrcella.
Yeah.
So there's now going to be some sort of race. So we have that to look forward to.
They're really in trouble, those guys. I mean, if they already know that they're coming for Myrcella,
Yeah.
they're not going to make it easy, right? Not that it was easy to start with 2 guys walking, and especially with one hand going into Dawn trying to get Myrcella back.
All right, guys.
All right.
Are you ready for this?
What are we at?
I have said this before. Never trust a whore in Game of Thrones. Holy cow. Unsullied, Second Sons, I think, are cut up too. Like, I just, what? Grey Worm, Barristan, words, what are they?
Both of them. But why both of them? Now, oh man, are they both dead? Is the question.
They also got stabbed in the same spot, on the same side of their bodies, I'm pretty sure, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they done both got stabbed in
Was
sort of.
anyone else mildly disappointed in how the Unsullied fought?
Yes, in fact, I wanted.
I was like, guys, you are badasses. You can do better than this.
I do want to jump to that a little bit later. I saw
Yeah.
we saw a fan question about that, so we
Okay.
are going to jump to that one. I don't want to kind of
Great.
spoil that for us yet, but I will say that I was definitely surprised that both of them went down.
I know. And what is Daenerys going to do? Those are like her 2 guys.
What a
Right.
great question. That's a
Yeah.
perfect question. How does Dany follow this up? Is this, because we hear this sort of juxtaposed, is that how do you say that?
Juxtaposition?
Juxtaposed.
Yes,
Juxtaposed.
sure.
That's the way you say
Grammar
that word.
lesson today, kids.
Juxtaposed against Hisdar. So many difficult words to say. Hisdar's sort of speech about, hey, we should reopen the fighting pits. You need to do this. So is she
Right.
going to somehow have mercy and open up the fighting pits to end this struggle? Is she going to meet violence with violence? Are the dragons going to come back out? Is she going to get
the
them to reinforce? Because now we're Unsullied are apparently
I mean,
not
yeah.
as useful.
Yeah. So you go. I was,
No,
I was going to complain more about
it's
the
obviously a
Unsullied.
lot to take in, and it's crazy that the episode ended right there. Like when the shot with them both on the ground, I was like, if the credits come up after this, I'm
Yeah.
going to lose my mind.
They can't
And then
die.
of course the credits came
They
up.
can't die. They both got stabbed up real good, but
I-
I don't
I
think it's
have a
enough to take
feeling-
these
I was
dudes
going to
out.
say, hold on, let me, I know where you're going with this.
Okay.
Are they dead? Are Grey Worm and Barristan dead?
I think Barristan is probably dead. I think Grey Worm has a chance of survival.
I agree with Alison.
I agree. I mean,
You
But-
agree as well?
Also, it's Game of Thrones. They could both be dead.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah.
Because it just adds that much more conflict for Daenerys. And also, by the way, it sets Jorah up for a really good comeback.
Yep.
Because Dany needs someone she can trust. If
There's
both
a
these
solid
guys are
opening
gone.
in the
Point.
Queen's Guard.
Yeah.
Good point.
There's a solid
Yeah.
opening in the Queen's Guard. All right, a lot of great thoughts. A lot of great thoughts. And of course, as you mentioned and brought up, I want to jump right into the fan questions here.
Yes.
So we are going to skip ahead in our fan questions really fast. We're going to go to question number 2 so that everyone knows. Question number 2, we are going to go to from @BuckeyeFX. That's @_Buckeye_FX. And the question here is, aren't the Unsullied supposed to be huge badasses? How'd that whole group get killed by guys with daggers with very narrow vision?
Yeah, that's the thing with me. I was very confused by it. Although, I guess there's the idea that they were taken by surprise by a lot of guys.
You know, I liked this question because when I think of the Unsullied, I think of like the Spartans.
Yeah.
And the Spartans that fight together, and we've seen them sort of shield lock before and everything. So I was a little disappointed in the fact that I was like, how come you guys aren't like circled up in a shield against dudes with daggers
Yeah.
who aren't an army.
And think about how
Right.
poorly those masks, like being completely realistic here, like how poorly those masks would have been made in those times, how heavy they would have been, zero peripheral vision.
I just
Right?
think because
Think of the
in that one
peripherals.
room there were really only 6 Unsullied, and there were almost 20.
Yeah.
I just think it was a numbers game.
I even felt like the one shot where they show sort of the two Unsullied out. I was like, okay, now they both turned so that their backs are facing each other. That makes sense. But why didn't
Yeah.
they get back to back like you would imagine two of them
well,
would?
again, but they were attacked by 6 dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just think it was a numbers game, and I think that Harvey's
I mean,
knew
you
that.
think like by how long the battle was going. I mean, there's supposed to be 8,000 Unsullied. Like where were the rest of them? Like how did that happen? You know.
There's a very interesting question there because how widespread was this?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, is that they were all over the city.
Yeah.
So.
How widespread was this
And
attack?
we were just zooming in on one specific
And I
battle.
think it's important to note too that all of us would like the Unsullied to have just murdered all those Sons of the Harpy because we don't like them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're
And
also on
But
the
then
side
the
of the
episode
Unsullied.
would have been called The Unsullied, not The Sons of the Harpy.
Exactly.
It was kind of cool to see Barristan get in the mix as well.
Yes,
right?
old man fighting.
Yeah.
Woo!
Well-
He took down a fair few as well.
Yeah, he did.
Speaking of Barristan, old man fighting, the first time we've gotten to see Barristan, I've been waiting for that. That was awesome. Jumping back to our first questions from our fans, of course. This one is from @Asceticis.
Wow.
Asks, is this the death they've been warning us about? And this, of course, is in reference to the fact that the show creators have been mentioning for now a few weeks or months that there was going to be a major death coming. And do you guys think that this was the one that they were
No.
referencing?
No.
No?
No.
Next.
Pretty simple.
Because there's so many more people to kill
More
off.
important.
So many more to kill off.
I mean, there's more like Grey Worm and Barristan are great characters. That I don't think they would fall under the category of killing off a main character.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, a follow-up to that is from @NellyJelly. So @NellyJelly asks,
Oh, Nelly.
were you shocked about the ending of the episode? And do you hate cliffhangers?
No, cliffhangers are why we keep watching TV. That's why we're gonna have a show next week.
Oh, yeah, luckily, if we knew all the answers, we'd kind of be like, well,
But
that was
I think
easy.
I already answered that question. I was the one who was like, when I saw them both dead or dying or whatever, I was like, don't go to credits, don't go to credits. And it went to credits, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah,
why?
it was a bad one this week, but no, I am like very interested to see who survives to the next episode.
I think we all have our moments where we lean forward in the seats and we're like,
Yeah.
what's
Or
you know,
scream
what's-
at the
what's gonna
television like
happen?
I do.
Yeah.
For the record, we all watched the show together
Yeah.
before this show,
And
I'm like
Alison's
very
quote this
vocal.
week was, "Oh, I hate neck slicing."
I hate,
neck slicing.
I hate neck slicing.
The noise. There's so many people got their
Yeah,
throats
it's the-
slit
it's
this
the- it's-
episode.
It's the noise. It's
Oh.
the
Noise.
audio.
All right, and
Whatever
our
that is.
final fan question this week, and
Okay.
again, final only here during the show. You can always ask them using the hashtag WIC. Please, please, please get those questions in all week long. We'd love to talk to you guys. But this one comes from @LeoSatch. Do you think Arya will have the opportunity to kill Marin Trant since he is coming to Bravos and he is on her list?
Oh.
Holy crap, what a great question.
Good.
And if you guys
catch,
don't know, if
sir.
you didn't catch who he was, it's so Marin Trant was the Kingsguard that is going to be escorting Tyrell
Yes.
to Bravos.
Yes, he'll be escorting Mace Tyrell, and Mace Tyrell was super excited
Yeah.
to be my very own Kingsguard.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that he did, like, Cersei's like, oh, we have to do that with the bank? Well, then maybe we should set an envoy. You're a great idea. Great. We've already got your ticket paid for. Get you out the door. Like, at no point was he like, this was set up very quickly.
Do you think Mace comes back from this trip?
No.
No.
No way.
No.
Don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a good pickup. I like that.
But
one.
anyways, the pickup, of course, is Arya now going to have the chance to kill Marin Trant? I think that's
Which
a
is
great question.
amazing.
I think that's a great pickup, and I would love to see that happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm into it.
All right, great guys. So you guys know every single week at the end of our episode, we kind of do 3 really fast sort of lightning questions for ourselves to answer.
Cool.
And for you guys to answer at home, of course. And the first one is, who is your villain of the week? Who did you hate the most this week?
This is a tough question because I feel like there's many people who aren't quite villains, but they are villains. But I'm going to go with Melisandre, solely because her trying to seduce Jon Snow made me very angry.
Oh, just
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
girl protection there.
Yeah. All right. All right. I'm actually going to go with a kind of a minor one, but it bothered me because Shireen is so, or Shireen, however you would say that name, is so sweet and loving. Selyse, her mother, come on, and we saw such a strong sort of counter to that with Stannis clearly loving his daughter and not being ashamed of her. And Selyse in that moment, I was like, man, you're just such a bee.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. That was actually the one I was going to say as well. I think she's really showing some horrible colors so far.
Yeah.
And even, do you guys remember when Mance was getting burnt at the stake and she was smiling?
She smiled.
Yeah, I've been noticing some really horrible things she's been doing. I mean, her character is doing, and I think she's a really a quiet villain.
Yeah, minor one, but one that I don't know if you love to hate, but you just kind of do hate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now,
Yes.
the next one for you guys. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
What is the storyline or the scene? I guess maybe scene's a better way to word this. What's the scene that just could have gone on longer for you? Like you just wanted to see what's the next line? What's the next thing that happens in this scene? What was that for you guys this week?
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, please.
And reverse the order.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, Jamie and Bron, man. I'm stoked on those two. I want to see where they go. I mean, everyone knows they're there in Dawn now. Like, how they're going to survive. Jamie has one hand. Want to see it.
Yeah, and I think you would have seen a lot of great one-liners while Bron's trying to dig and Jamie is sitting there with his hand. Alison.
I'm going to go with Cersei and Tommen because I'm becoming such a Tommen fan now, and I love that his character is getting so fleshed out, and he's not just like the youngest. I keep calling him a Lannister kid, even though he might technically be a Baratheon. But yeah, I'm really now that Cersei's using him much more as a pawn. I'm interested to see where that goes.
I'm going to cheat, guys.
Okay.
I'm going to absolutely cheat and say Grey Worm and Barristan. I want to know if either of them gets up.
Oh, come on.
All right.
No. I would actually say the Stannis scene with Shireen. I would just like to see them, like, does that hug just sort of like awkwardly end and then he's like pats her on, and then he's like, okay, get out?
Yeah, probably.
Or like, is there some
I
more
would like
we
to see
behind the scenes?
that next moment on so many scenes. Like,
Right.
what happens after all these like heroic one-liners and stuff? They're like, what do you want to do now? Should we get going? Or
Yeah.
should we get the horses? Or how do you want to do this?
So I had a fun one, and that's a great point, by the way. I'm sorry. I had a fun one for our last one.
Yep.
And that is your favorite history lesson of this week's episode. And I'll give a couple examples really fast. Oberyn mentions Oberyn. Littlefinger mentions Lyanna. And Stannis mentions Shireen. And Rhaegar's mentioned again. So which one was kind of your favorite history lesson, Xavier?
I'm going to go Shireen and the grayscale. I thought was really cool how they explained that.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. I'm going with Sir Barristan talking about Rhaegar and the fact that he would go out and sing and then give the money to another musician or an orphanage, or they would just get really drunk. And I just think it's great because, like we've said, Rhaegar is not a character we've actually seen on the show. He died before this timeline began. So we only know him through stories. And as far as we know, he's been this like crazy king who kidnapped a girl and raped her, and that started this whole war. But now we start to hear the human side of him. And it makes you sort of second guess all the stories you've been told before.
Yeah.
Because of that story, I liked the first Rhaegar story a little bit more, but only because we then got the second one later. So we did get both sides of it. And I liked the first one because it was just sort of this growing darkness of the story, and it was very clearly, finally, like just, this is what happened. We'd heard it in bits and pieces. We kind of knew the story. We'd pieced it together. But I really dug that, and I really did dig what Alison mentioned earlier with Sansa, saying, well, yeah, and then he took my aunt and raped her. And
Yeah.
So great, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Now it is the time to end our show. We want to thank you very much on behalf of Alison, Xavier, and myself. We want to thank you very much for being here and watching our show. And of course, you can check us out every single week. We will be here next week. We want to thank thestream.tv for having us. And of course, we want to thank winteriscoming.net and Entertainment Weekly. You should go to both of those sites to get all of your news, information, rumors, gossip, and comments about Game of Thrones. And sorry, I was going to say winter. I was going to say winter is coming. Well, I was going to say winter is coming, but I was like, that doesn't work. So thank you all very, very much for watching. On behalf of myself, FanSided, and my hosts, and everyone else, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Yep.